everybody, thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at the brand new Fantagraphics release by Léonie Bischoff, Anais Nin, A Sea of Lies. So this is a biography of the title character, Anais Nin. Anais is a real-life person who I've never heard of before, but who was a romantic partner of the writer Henry Miller, and also a writer in her own right, and someone who kind of pushed the boundaries of sexuality, I guess, within her lifetime, and is known for that. So I didn't really know anything about her going into the book. I didn't really know anything about what the book was. I actually didn't even pre-order this in the Fantagraphics Fanabuck sale. I think probably because I read the description of what the book was about at that point in time and thought it wasn't for me. But then I saw on their Instagram just some posts of the pages, and I don't know, usually Fantagraphics doesn't really give away what the insides of their books look like, and it worked in this case for them to do it, because I thought, God, I really like the look of that. It's like this color pencil art all the way throughout, maybe a little bit of ink here and there, but it looks mostly like colored pencils and maybe some pastels. And I just really thought, man, that looks like a gorgeous book, so I ordered it. And didn't bother to pay attention to what it was about or anything. It didn't really matter to me. I just thought it looked nice. So the content of the book took me a bit off guard, but it's actually pretty interesting, you know, to learn about this character's life. It's just, she is someone who chooses purposely to live outside the bounds of all morality, especially as related to sexuality. And so it's not even morality, I should say, but like all social convention and everything, which is interesting, but also an extremely uncomfortable read. So I'll talk about that as I go. I don't want to spoil it or give away too much, but there are some things that I just feel like I need to cover. But basically, this is a story about Anais. I believe I'm pronouncing her name right based on how it's suggested to be pronounced in the book. The majority of the book is done. I really actually enjoy what Léonie Bischoff has done, where the majority of the book is pretty open and white, but it never feels like it's being lazy. It adds a certain, like, I don't know, with the high contrast, it adds a lot of liveliness to the book, I think, the colors against the white. But then you also get these very beautiful scenes that are fully rendered across the whole panel, and the kind of rhythm between those is very nice throughout. But you start with Anais and her husband, Hugo, and you get a sense that, you know, they have a really, really nice marriage. He's really supportive. She really loves him. They're leading kind of a high society life. This looks like it was happening, I'm guessing, in the 1920s-ish. I don't think there was a date attached to it, but the vibe of it is very like Flappers to me, so I'm guessing post-World War I, pre-World War II, which also makes sense. Just in terms of the characters' behaviors. I was thinking about that quite a bit while I was reading it, where, you know, you have people coming out of World War I, and, like, of course the world went wild during the 1920s. The confluence of things leading up to that, from, you know, Darwin and Freud and World War I and the Industrial Revolution and the death of God as rendered by Nietzsche, just all of that leads to a pretty explosive time. And I think this character is kind of a good representative of the people questioning the standard morals, you know, that started around that time. That just what has turned into postmodernism really started in the 1910s and 1920s, especially the 20s with Dada. And so you get a sense of that questioning of all moral authority throughout the book. Here's just some more looks at the type of really beautiful art you get throughout. When you get these big pictures like this, they're just absolutely gorgeous, these big moments. I was tempted to put tabs on all of them because I just love the imagery so much, but, you know, go buy the book and look at all the beautiful images. One of the things that you get in the book is that she is experiencing these different sexual awakenings. So the first one seems to be in learning to dance flamingo. Anais is kind of exploring her own sensuality. Like, obviously she loves her husband and everything, but there's something that she's not satisfied with there. Also, again, just pointing out these beautiful, like, super confident, clean line without all this rendering. And you can see what a fantastic draftsperson Léonie Bischoff is. Also, the way Anais's hair is treated throughout the book is just really gorgeous, this like really expressive clump shape throughout. So there was just a lot in the art that I loved in this book. So here we start to meet the expanded cast of characters. This is her cousin here, who through the conversation you get a sense is that he's homosexual, and he's attending this guy, Dr. Allendy. He's going to sessions with this Dr. Allendy, and he's trying to basically pray the gay away with this guy. And so she's exposed to people in her life that fit outside of the normative behavior early on. Where things really take off is when she meets Henry Miller. And they really become like soulmates of a sort. Like her husband is a great husband, a great partner for her, but Henry Miller is someone who's really like, she can share her soul with in a creative way, and so you see them connecting over that. And his wife as well is involved in it, and you get a sense of like this developing kind of multi-way kind of love scenario that's going on between her. And then here you get June Miller, Henry Miller's wife, who she develops, is her first lesbian interaction, basically. And so she starts exploring her sexuality that way. I had to go look all these people up because they were real people. I've never heard of them, and they're just going on about how this woman will walk into a room and charm the whole room. So I looked her up, and surprisingly looks a lot like Uma Thurman in some of the photos I found. So that's always cool to go and see the real people versus how they're drawn. And I think you can kind of see the Uma Thurman-ness a bit here. But Léonie Bischoff did a really good job with all of the rendering of the characters as well, turning them into cartoon versions of themselves, but also, keeping some sense of likeness. And I can't say personality because I don't know much about them, but looking at the photographs of them, it translates over very well. Here you get another kind of image of when she's really experiencing, I guess, great sex for the first time, or a certain new level of intensity of sexuality. This is the kind of imagery that I saw online that sold me on this book. The super clean, confident line work, the piling up, like the lines aren't just one color, the lines are made up of multiple colors, so they really vibrate. There's like one color to here and another color to there and another one to there, another one to there, and then like 2 or 3 colors along some of the edges, and it just really makes the whole book like glow with life. It's so beautiful. Everything about the book is so gorgeous, and you can see that as I'm flipping through. It actually sometimes gets a little weird when it goes to scenes like this because it doesn't feel as physical. One other thing that I would complain about this book is it's printed on really shiny paper, which helps with the vividness of the colors, and I get why that was the choice. And maybe Fantagraphics was contractually bound to mimic the production quality of the original piece, so I'm assuming maybe this is something that the artist wanted to represent. But because it's such a physical medium, I think like a really nice type, something that felt like actual drawing paper that would hold the ink really brightly would have been really nice, because there's such a tactile quality. I think of what No Brow Press does with their artists and how they preserve this sense of like the physicality of the original art, even on stuff that's done digitally, like with their Gamian Tales. The end product feels like an actual pastel drawing or something. So I think that could have come across in this book as well. Here we get into, now that we're about 2/3 of the way through the book maybe, and Anais is really starting to explore the boundaries of sexuality. And one thing that I find particularly interesting as a viewpoint that's sold in this book, and this kind of goes with the whole 1920s, what was going on there, is there's really a sense of someone who realizes that each time they break a boundary, they're viewing the world from a place not many other people get to view the world. And I could see how that could become addictive to people. I think of like Aleister Crowley or other people that were operating in this time as well in the European milieu, who were pretty much like thinking about, I've got to do everything good, everything bad, everything taboo, because within that I will know more about the world. And even on a spiritual level, like they're thinking that's the only way to become a fully realized spiritual entity is to do everything. You know, probably not the best life advice, but it's an interesting argument that's being made in the book. One that I don't think is wise, one I wouldn't suggest going down. But Léonie Bischoff like sells it in a way where it's like, okay, I could see how someone gets sucked into that, especially when I consider the cultural context of the time, especially this mostly playing out in Europe, even though Anais is from Cuba, from all over the place, but also spent a lot of time in New York, but has a really mixed background as well. So anyways, at this point in the book, she really starts to play with that looseness of her morality, and in this scene you see her fucking her cousin, basically her gay cousin, and she's, I guess, trying to help him fuck the gay away, but having an experience there. He recommends to her that she visit his therapist, and that's its whole own little storyline. I don't want to give away too much. It's just kind of giving you a sense of the cast of characters. The thing that I will give away, because I think it's just one of those things that may be a deciding factor for some people on this book. This isn't a damnation of the book. I really liked this book. I just really did not like the story of this woman's life is very uncomfortable. And so in this scene here, and this I'm assuming is true, it must be at least in her diaries. I don't know if she actually did this, but I'm assuming the majority of this book, because she's a heavy diary writer, is based on publications of her diary. She says throughout the book that she has a fake diary and a real diary. So I guess there's room in there to see that people don't understand which is the real one and which is the fake one. So maybe some of these sexual misadventures are actually fake, just her imaginings, I'm not sure. But the book gets overly uncomfortable to where I almost had to quit reading it when she gets involved in a sexual affair with her own father. So she's basically cheating on her husband with her dad, and her dad being kind of this awful, manipulative person who's also using his own, like, living outside of the moral boundaries to continue abusing her daughter into adulthood. And it's not just like a one-night stand thing. It's like you get the sense that it went on for a few months or something. And so this stuff is just completely uncomfortable. And the dialogue here is just, I'll read some of it. Father, Anais, finally, if you only knew how they treat me here. I'm sure everyone is taking good care of you. Ha! I'm in pain, Anais, and it pains me that you see me like this, an old man. I wish you could have known me when I was 40. You're not an old man. You're handsome. I'm happy you've inherited my good looks, and I'm unhappy you're the perfect woman and I can't marry you. I like his taste for blasphemy and irony. We are equally without morality, but I remember that unlike me, he has no compassion at all. And, it goes on from there. There's just some other, so you can see that there are some variety of approaches and styles within the book. Not a lot. It's mostly, the approach that you get in scenes like this. But sometimes you get these more experimental things. So that's really nice as well, that the artist of the book, Léonie Bischoff, is like playing a little bit. She hasn't committed to this is the style. Like, the style can morph a little bit to fit the emotive content of the book. So anyways, I find this to be a really, really beautiful book. I find it to be, it's just absolutely gorgeous. A really well written, really well told story. It's just a story that's really uncomfortable, which is okay. It's okay to tell uncomfortable stories. It's really hard when you're getting to the point where someone's like having a lengthy sexual affair with their own father to sit there. And the book, interestingly, doesn't pass any judgment, and I think that's a good thing. This is just reporting on someone's life without judgment. I do think, like, on the back of the book, like, after I finished reading it, I was like, okay, how is Fantagraphics selling this? And they really kind of sell it as if she's, like, discovers that her sexual liberation also frees her as an author. Nin lived her life like a work of art and created art from her life. Léonie Bischoff brings it full circle by illuminating Nin's inner complexity in this uncompromising work of art. So they almost sell this Nin character like she's this heroic, progressive figure that's pushing the boundaries you know, and pushing back against social norms and all that stuff. But when you're getting to the point where someone's fucking their own dad for a lengthy amount of time, I think it's probably like a fair sales job to say, like, hey, this is a book about a famous, like, sexual boundary pusher or a famous deviant or someone like that. So that, in terms of the sales job of the book, I'm a bit uncomfortable with. It's like, this is not normal and not healthy, and to be presenting somebody as like a healthy liberator of sexuality when they're engaged with an abusive sexual relationship with their father, I think underplays it. I think Léonie Bischoff does a good job suggesting the complexities of the struggle that this person has been through in their life that led to these things, especially her relationship with her father. But in the marketing job, like I said, it just seems to be underselling that aspect of the book a little bit. So that's why I wanted to. I was almost hesitant to show the later part of the book, but when it got so intense like that, I feel like anyone who's turning to the channel for reviews is probably due that warning. Just like, hey, you know, if this content ain't for you, then this book ain't for you. But I would really suggest, even if you're uncomfortable with that content, putting that aside and enjoying the book for the kind of just really beautiful piece of visual art that it is. It's a really stunning piece of comics and cartooning. So I hope you get it. I hope you enjoy it. And I'd be curious what other people think about this character, Anais Nin, after they read it. It really does have me going back and reflecting on what was going on socially at the time that led to, you know, you just hear like a lot of this type of stories around that time in high society in Europe, these real boundary pusher figures. So it's interesting to me. It's making me reflect philosophically, and I appreciate that about the book as well. So I'm interested to hear what you all think, those who have read it, or come back and report after you have read it. That would be great. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us so we keep making videos like this, there's two ways to do that. The first is through our Patreon. We have 2 tiers of engagement on our Patreon. At the first tier, you just get early access to the videos. At the second tier, you get exclusive previews of the books that Sean and I are working on, as well as the ability to participate in our ongoing webcomic experiment, Prane Day. So we really appreciate that support. Any of the money we get from Patreon helps us buy the books that we review, so we just turn that back into the community. That if you want to support Living the Line itself, money that stays with us and supports our families and stuff, the best thing to do would be support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. The Exile by Eric Creek is a gorgeously illustrated Viking saga of revenge. Eric Creek calls it his Viking Western. It's about a guy who's been away on the warpath and is returning home to some family troubles that have to be resolved. And this is told in just this amazing, like, kind of 3-color art style that looks like old woodblock cuts or something. It's absolutely gorgeous book that you've got to pick up. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.